Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I'm back with my plans and pans. Well, this week I had the privilege of going to a very exciting ceremony announcing the fact that the city of Chicago would be hosting the Democratic Convention in 2024. One of the real bonanzas of that is it estimated that about $150 million in terms of revenue will come to the city of Chicago. Restaurants, hotels, all the activities that are going on during that time. I had the pleasure in 1996 of being at the Democratic Convention here, and it was amazing because the weather every single day in Chicago was perfect. We hope that happens again. The Biden administration announced that it would be providing health care for DACA recipients. Who are those? Those are young people who came to the United States with their parents from other countries, parents who therefore were not citizens of the United States. We created a program called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, young people who have come here, but they were not provided health care. This has been a program that has gone on now well over a decade, but they have not had the access to health care that they need. And now, under the Department of Health and Human Services, there will be a rule that will allow those individuals to get health care. We are hoping that a pathway to citizenship will also be afforded to those people. And of course, I believe in comprehensive immigration reform that will allow the people that want to become citizens of this country, who have been here for years, who are providing more money for our economy here and working hard to become citizens. So a pathway to citizenship is something I really want. Healthcare is a good start. This week I went out to McHenry County at the invitation of the McHenry County chapter of Moms Demand Action. Moms Demand Action is all about ending gun violence. The event was actually in Lake of the Hills at the Uprising Bakery and Cafe, a wonderful restaurant that I would encourage you to go out to, especially if you're vegan. The food was amazing. I'm a vegetarian, so I was happy to get the food from there as well. But I also went through some of the facts about gun violence, and I just want to roll through them. I've told you before, but I just want to remind you that every single day, 321 people are shot, and 111 are actually killed. And by the way, about half of those are people who commit suicide. So guns are a threat to people themselves and to others. In fact, when I came home from that meeting on guns, I learned that there was a shooting in Evanston, where I live, on the beach. An 18-year-old was killed, and two 15-year-olds were injured in this gunfight. It just seems to never end. Did you know that over the last 2 decades, more school-aged children have died from guns than on-duty policemen and active duty military combined? And number one cause of death of children now in the United States of America? Guns. You know, this is a U.S. problem alone. No other country in the world has the proliferation of guns. There are more guns than people in the United States of America. In Illinois, the governor signed a ban on assault weapons. Unfortunately, there have been a number of lawsuits that will be decided by the Illinois State Supreme Court next month. So we're looking forward to being able to, at least in our own state, have a ban on assault weapons. Of course, you know, these guns, these assault weapons and other guns can be bought still across state lines where they are legal. And until we have a full-out ban nationwide on assault weapons, we won't be protected from those weapons of war. And of course, we have to go further. These so-called everyday shootings, we have to limit access to guns. So I was so happy to join these dedicated activists out in McHenry County, and I know that there are people all across the state and all across the country who are, as regular citizens, fighting to stop gun violence. Last week, I also convened a meet and greet in Cary, which is also in McHenry County, and the idea was to invite new members of the 9th Congressional District to be able to come and learn what we can do for them and to answer the questions that they had. I wanted to be sure that people in this new part of the district understood that we have an absolutely fantastic, I think the best anywhere, constituent service. We call them our constituent advocates, and we can really solve problems that many people have dealt with for sometimes years, trying to cut through red tape in the federal government. And I wanted them all to know that we will never ask their party affiliation. That is not the point. The point is that we are there to help. As a prior teacher, it's always fun for me to be in a classroom, although I taught little kids. This week, I went to Evanston High School. It is in the north side of Chicago, and a fantastic school, and I got the opportunity to speak to about 200 high school students, and it was great fun. I wanted them to know, first of all, that my principal reason for being there was to say to them, I don't want to know what you want to do in your future, what your job might be. I want to know, as high school students, none of whom in that room were eligible to vote, what are you going to do now? I say that to kids of all ages now. What do you want to do? And I talked about the issues that they can have a really big impact on. One of them is gun violence. We are seeing that in schools really across the state and the country, sometimes kids are walking out of school to demand action. And we have seen young people standing up and saying that it is past time for us to make the changes to get less fossil fuels, to make sure that the air is safe to breathe for themselves and for their children and grandchildren. So I really wanted to encourage them to get involved. A number of them asked questions about reproductive rights. Not just the girls, but the boys are concerned about freedom, their freedom, about freedom for LGBTQ young people. And I wanted to assure them that I was on their side. These are the kinds of intense questions that came up among these juniors in high school. And then I went to the Crown Center in Evanston. If you haven't been there, it's far more than a place to do ice skating, library, a gym, all kinds of activities. And one of the activities happening at the Crown Center is called Armor Down Girls, an organization created and hosted by Dr. Felicia Parsons, who is a longtime 30-year educator in the city of Evanston, intended to create a sense of confidence among girls that are 8 to 12 years old. And these girls were terrific. So we got into a lot of things that I did when I was younger and the kinds of things that they can do now. So we want to arm our girls to be confident, and there's an organization in Evanston that does that. I had a Zoom meeting with Kate Mayer, who is the executive director of the Greater Chicago Food Depository, provides food to a lot of the food pantries and makes sure that there is food available throughout the Chicagoland area to people who are hungry. And I want to talk to you a little bit about hunger. In this richest country in the world at the richest time in history, there are millions and millions of Americans who do not have sufficient income in order to make sure that they can feed themselves and their families. I think that that is just an embarrassment for our country, and it's a decision because we can do better. The Republicans in the House of Representatives have introduced the America Works Act to make more stringent the rules that require work in order to get help for food. I don't understand what they're thinking, because I think that every single member of Congress, House and Senate, live in an area where people need the SNAP program, who are not having enough money to provide a nutritional meal every single day. And so I wrote a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture saying that we want to add to the SNAP program to make sure that we can provide more food, to reconsider these cuts that are coming into the SNAP program. We want to make sure that in this rich, great country that everyone can afford to eat and to avoid hunger. I ended the week with a wonderful community dinner, an iftar. It was hosted by a friend of mine, Bushra Amawala, and she is the youngest Muslim woman elected to anything in the whole United States of America, and she is a force of nature. So she hosted this well-attended large event. The governor was there, the lieutenant governor was there. I was privileged to say a few words. And I reminded people that this really is a holiday season for so many of us. But it was also a time to talk about coming together. There are so many things we have in common, celebrating with our families, hoping for a brighter and safer and prosperous future for ourselves. We need to bring all that together. And in our community, in the 9th Congressional District, I really think that we do. We are really blessed with that. So I will see you next week.